Okay, hello. Today's video or lesson is on the volume of cones. So last week I showed you the volume of a cylinder, which is like a can of soup or a candle. That volume is right here. It's always pi times the radius squared times the height. Because pi r squared is really just the area of a circle, and then you're multiplying the area of a circle times the height of that circle, which gives you a 3D shape or the filling of the 3D object. Now, I want you to look at the difference between the cylinder volume and the cone volume. Look at those two equations and see if you notice anything different between those two formulas. All right, after looking, you should have noticed the only difference is that the cone volume is 1/3 of the cylinder volume. What that means is that, let's say you have a cylinder. Right here I have a cylinder and a cone, right? Right here I have a cylinder and a cone. If you notice, they both have the same height and they have the same radius. All this means is that if you were to solve the volume of these two, the cone volume will be 1/3. It's going to be 1/3 of the volume of the cylinder with the same height and radius. Now, let's look, just as a review, the cylinder volume. So that is over here. If you notice, here's my formula. And down here, I just plugged in two numbers. The 2, which is the radius, goes in for the R. And then the 6 goes in because that is the height, the H, of this cylinder. If you multiply all that out, and I'm using 3.14 from pi, I get 75 and 3600 cubic inches, okay? So knowing this, the cone volume, let's look at that example over here. The cone volume, I do the same exact thing, except at the beginning, I multiply by 1/3. Okay, so you take 1/3, you might have to put that in parentheses, okay? You might have to put this 1/3 in parentheses, then times 3.14 times 2 squared, because that's my radius, is 2, times 6. That is my height. If you notice, this ends up being my volume if I were to type it in my calculator. And this is 1/3 of the size of this number right here. So it's kind of cool. It basically means if I were filling this cone up with water and pouring it into this cylinder, I could fill 3 of these up and it would fit in this right here. And I'll attach a video that actually shows it with like a little science experiment if you want to watch it. It's kind of cool. So let's do another example. Let's do another example of just a cone. So down here, I have the cone volume formula, 1/3 times pi times the radius squared times height. If you notice though, right here, I don't have a radius. This is my diameter. Do we want to use diameter for this formula? Does that say diameter? No, this is radius. So to find the radius, all you do, and you know this, all you do is take half of the diameter, which ends up being 3, right? My radius ends up being 3. So I'm gonna even put this here. So my radius equals 3 because it is half of this 6. And then you just plug in the numbers like before. You would plug in your calculator 1/3. You might have to put it in parentheses in your calculator. Don't just put 0.3. It's not the same. So it's 1/3 times 3.14 times 3, because that's my radius, not 6. Boom, boom. They will try to confuse you with that. So the 3 goes in there, square it, times 10. And look, you get, this is your answer, 94 2/10 cubic feet. And that's how you solve for the volume of a cone.